Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. Going to do a wrap up for everything I read in June. Just had to check the month then. Yeah, I had a really good reading month in June. I read 8 books, which is quite good going for me. And I gave 3 of them 5 stars. So 3 5 stars in 1 month is very good. Um, and I managed to get in to tick off quite a few of the events. So uh, good overall. The first one I read was for June on the Range, which was a Louis L'Amour, and that was the Cherokee Trail. Um, this was a sort of fun little novel. The editing was really bad in it, which you sort of expect a little bit in sort of pulp novels. Um, yeah, it was my first experience with Louis Moore, and this is a book that's right at the end of his career. So I do want to try one that's earlier on, just to compare them to see if he put a bit more effort in on that front earlier on in his career. But did find it quite refreshing that it was about a sort of a woman making her own way in the man's world. Like she's out in the new frontier, um, in Nebraska, I think, and it's still really rough and there's gunslingers around and stuff. But she sort of takes charge of this way station, and it's there's no real romance or anything either. It's just a straightforward um, sort of woman defending her land sort of thing. So it was enjoyable. Definitely will get another L'Amour. Maybe I'll try some of those Sackett ones um, next June on the range. The second book I read was for um, what's the word? Book Trek. I was trying to remember which way around it went. Book Trek, and that was The Way to the Stars by Una McCormack. This one, it didn't feel super Trekky because it's like a coming of age story about Tilly from Star Star Trek Discovery, which I've not even really watched. I think I watched like 2 episodes, but because it's like a coming of age sci-fi novel, it was really fun anyway. I think McCormack's quite an entertaining writer. Like this was my first experience with her, um, but I've heard her speak a lot on the Backlisted podcast about sci-fi, and she's an interesting person. So I definitely want to check out more of hers. This I think anyone would get something out of this book, even if you're not a big Trekkie, because it's just more about her when she's 16 and she's sort of doesn't know what to do with her life and stuff, but she's really interested in mushrooms. But her parents want her to be a diplomat, and it's just about her going to school and escaping and stuff, and then eventually ending up at Starfleet. Um, Definitely good. I'll definitely read another McCormack. I might try her Firefly one, but I don't know if I have to read all the ones in the series um, before I get to that. Next was The Hollow Crown. Yeah, I've spoken about all these a few times, so this is just a narrative history of the War of the Roses. I'm much more familiar with the Tudors and the Plantagenets, so it's good to learn a bit about in between. I have read some non-fiction, fiction books around this period, so I did know most of what was going to happen. But um, Dan Jones always reliable to sort of walk you through a time period in an entertaining way. Um, Next was the first 5 star read, which was My Ántonia by Willa Cather. Um, this is um, about a woman. Um, well, it's about a guy when he's a kid. He meets this girl on the way to. I'm going to say Nebraska again. Maybe Cherokee Trail's not Nebraska. This one's Nebraska, and they go to Nebraska, and um, it's like the story of his childhood with this immigrant family, and the his friend Ántonia is this little Bohemian girl, and it's one of these books where it is like The Great Gatsby, where it's a portrait from afar of this great character, and she's just full of life and just a bit different from everyone else. And Willa Cather does little portraits of loads of little characters in the town as well. So you jump around a bit, and their interactions with Ántonia and stuff. Her writing is really beautiful, especially when she's describing sort of these quirky characters, but even more so when she's describing the land, sort of the where they've settled, and farming and stuff. She's just really beautiful. I'd definitely read more of hers. Maybe I think O Pioneers and stuff is in. I think it's a series, but it's not. Then none of them are connected. So I'll definitely read more of hers. Um, yeah, it's just a great sort of character portrait. So highly recommend that one. Um, and then I read Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I've read a couple of du Mauriers before, Rebecca and The House on the Strand. Um, this one I wanted to read because I'd been camping right where this book was set, where the real Jamaica Inn is, and where the house that Mandalay's based on is. Yeah, this was your sort of very atmospheric and dark book about these dodgy characters who run the inn, and the niece of the character's mother has died, and she's been sent to live with them, and she's sort of uncovering the horrible stuff they're doing there. Um, her auntie lives there, and it's her auntie and uncle, and the uncle's the evil one, and the auntie's sort of under his spell. But yeah, it's super dark and atmospheric. But like even from the start, the rain's like hitting the the carriage window as she's riding to Cornwall. And it's a very like psychological horror. There's not like violence and things like that. It's all sort of her trying to find out what evil things that's happening, and all these dodgy characters who are coming to the inn at night. Um, yeah, really good. And then my second 5-star read of the month was True Grit by Charles Portis. I forgot I've got Jamaica in here, but yeah, True Grit by Charles Portis. This is about a really funny character, Matty, who's like this 14-year-old, and her dad's been shot in the street, and everyone knows who's done it, and this guy's run off. Um, and she goes to and she hires Rooster Cogburn to hunt him down. Um, this is sort of really short, funny. It's all about the dialogue. Both characters are really funny, and Matty's interactions are just brilliant. Um, yeah, I love this, and a great introductory western for anyone, and two great films made from it. Next, I read Jane Eyre. So I had read Jane Eyre before, but it was an abridged version, and this is the full version. And looking back, I'm not really sure how you would even abridge this novel because it's so wonderfully structured. Like the thing that keeps you constantly interested in this book is there's a lot of distinct periods of Jane Eyre's life. Like you start off in her sort of uncle's house with her uncle is dead, but she's living with her nasty auntie and um, cousins, and they're really horrible to her. And then she goes to school, and then she obviously gets her first job for Mr. Rochester. Um, I won't go into details of the second and or the fourth and fifth sort of sections, just because in case anyone's not read it, but most people know the story of Jane Eyre. There are like the writing's really good. Generally, like it's really easy to read, like especially for such an old book. And all the Bronte books give me that sort of weird, like like these. They feel like to me like weird little children who all homeschooled together and they've got their own worlds and stuff, but in a good way. Um, they just they all have the same sort of atmosphere to them, all their books. And I read Tenant of Wellborough Hall earlier in the year, and I really loved that. And Bronte seems to have, have created some sort of a nicer romantic lead than her sisters. But Rochester's not too bad. He's a bit of a trickster, but and obviously he has some secrets. Um, but yeah, I ended up liking him in the end. Yeah, really good. This was 5 stars as well. I do think Jane's a bit of a dope at times. Like when she's living with Rochester and all this weird stuff's happening, she doesn't really question it too deeply. But um, you never know what you would do in that situation. But yeah, um, yeah, you can see it. It's a classic. It's a lot of people's favourite Bronte. I would say Wuthering Heights is my favourite, and then this and Tennant of Wyfell Hall are about equal to me. But yeah, I think I love Tennant more for the romantic side of it rather than this one is more gothic. But yeah, really good. And then the last book I read was a reread as well, which was All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first in the Murderbot Diaries. Um, these are really like 120-page long novellas, and this first one, you sort of meet Murderbot, who is a security sort of cyborg. He's sort of part organic, but mostly robot. Um, and he's overridden his um, government governing chip that's meant to control him, because previously on a previous job he'd gone mad and killed everyone, and he doesn't really know why he did that. But he thinks it might be to do with that chip, so he overrides it, and he's sort of looking after these colonists on a planet who are doing surveying of some sort, um, or some sort of science, and he he basically just wants to be left alone and watch soap operas all day. Um, but then this big monster comes out of the ground and attacks them, and he has to rescue them. And they're like, there was no reports of monsters on this planet. And then they find out that there's some dark stuff going on in the background, and that they've been lied to, and there's bits of the map missing and stuff. It's very short, but lots happens in it, and you can tell it's the start of a series because you're just starting to get to know Murderbot, and he's sort of trying to learn to be a bit more human, because he does have a human face, that his visor's normally down, and some of the funniest bits are his he gets like horrified looks on his face without realizing, because he's not used to controlling his face, and he sort of watches himself through the cameras and stuff to try and learn how to look or to control his emotions more. But a really good start. I've already gone on and read the second one. I want to get to the fifth one, which is a full novel, because that won the Hugo and the Nebula Awards, so it can be part of my Hugo and Nebula project. Yeah, so that was a really good reading month. I didn't read any books that I thought were bad, really. Some are a bit pulpy, but yeah, really good, and some really fun ones in there. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if you have any thoughts, or if you've read further on in Murderbot, or um, everyone keeps telling me to read My Cousin Rachel by Maurier, so I need to get on that. So let me know if you enjoyed that one as well. Have a good day, BookTube. Bye.